The X Factor judge cites the uplifting address given by Bishop Michael Curry at Prince Harry's wedding as an example of what British parishioners are missing from the dull sermons delivered by many vicars. "The churches are empty because the services are boring," declares Brixton-born Sharon. "They need more of the emotion we saw from the bishop, who was animated and fabulous." In his somewhat outrageous sermon at Windsor, the Episcopalian bishop galvanized many of the congregation, and bemused some, with his homily calling for an end to poverty and war and citing American slavery and Martin Luther King Jr. Sharon, 65, whose father, the music promoter Don Arden, was Jewish, believes most churches are hidebound by being too straight, and cites her own move to America in helping her to sneak through the British way of life and to become so much more emotional. A recent survey showed that attendance at Church of England services had plunged to its lowest ever level, with the Archbishop of Canterbury warning it was battling to maintain its place in an increasingly anti-Christian culture. Official figures show that attendances at Anglican services are down almost a third, to about 750,000, with churches often holding Sunday morning services at which there are fewer than 16 worshippers. England has more active Catholics, but their congregations, too, are declining, with Christian worshippers overall likely to be overtaken by Muslim ones within a generation. Getty. Sharon Osbourne blames the Anglican clergy for being too boring. Closer and closer grow James Norton and Imogen Poots, the actress with whom the McMafia star swiftly became entwined after dismissing his last girlfriend, Jessie Buckley, his co-star in War and Peace. While Miss Buckley was hurt by James' abrupt decision to end their 2-year relationship, she described their parting as acrimonious. The Grantchester actor has plainly moved on, as displayed by his affectionate nuzzles with Miss Poot, 29, at the Royal Academy's summer party. Ampleforth and Cambridge-educated James, 32, became entranced by Imogen while both were appearing in the West End play, Belleville, in which they played a self-obsessed couple. While their romance is progressing apace, Imogen, a former home model, has yet to move her knickknacks into James' roost in Peckham, southeast London, only recently vacated by Jessie. Maybe just as well, as it's at home that James has confessed to suffering sleepless nights because of the EU referendum. "My heart breaks every morning about what is happening in this country," he sighs dramatically. "I digest everything about Brexit, and it feels like we are spiraling out of control and no one is willing to put the brakes on." Karwai Tang, Wire Imager. Imogen Poots and James Norton attend the Royal Academy of Art's summer exhibition. If Andy Murray plays at Wimbledon, you can be sure his mother Judy will be there, watching her boy like a hawk and, as she warns, giving her death stare to anyone sitting nearby who dares to eat crisps, chew gum, sniff, or pass a tut at my kids. Judy, 58, recalls her first encounter with Wimbledon was watching it on television with her 2 younger brothers, because there was no other viewing choice. Her mother Eileen was glued to the screen for a fortnight. She says, "My mum wouldn't leave her chair, and she'd always be commentating." Many years later, it realized that she didn't know what she was talking about. And she didn't really feed us. It was basically, go to the fridge and get something, because I'm not leaving this match blank. Ever wondered what the Queen feels like when she enters a room filled with people, knowing they're all nervous about meeting her? Well, and RAF officer who served as an equerry discloses, one summer day when she asked me to join her on a walk at Balmoral, she talked about how irritating it was to go into a party and, as she put it, watch people peel away, like the water parting as the bow of a ship plowed through it. Getty. Judy Murray celebrating after Andy Murray defeated Fabio Fognini at Wimbledon. She said she always felt it would be lovely to just slip into a party, wandering around incognito, talking to anyone she felt like, but the thing that most irritated her was the inevitable hush that always greeted her when they saw her walking in. Fame can be so fickle, muses Rupert Everett, who first realized he had made it in 1981 while he was in a West End production of Another Country, later starring in the film version. "There were posters of me all over the underground and it was so wonderful that I couldn't stop looking. I had the poster at home and I would look at it every night, going over every single corner. The sad thing is, you always want more. When you're young, you're so desperate to work and desperate to be handsome and desperate to be why. When you're older, you don't really care so much, and you've developed a whole lot of relationships along the way." Rupert Everett said he realized he first made it when he saw posters of himself on the underground. Famed photographer Terry O'Neill has no plans to celebrate his 80th birthday later this month. The Cockney snapper, once married to Faye Dunaway, sighs, "I'm at the stage of seeing all my mates die off." Michael Caine says, "They've started bowling in our alley. Fab way of putting it, blank, _ Colin Firth, WASNT, always the dashing dandy we've come to know and love. I went through a bit of a grungy phase in the 1970s, he admits, showing the shocking evidence of holes in his ears. I had 3 piercings. I was tempted at one stage to get one in my nose as well, but, thanky, never went through with it. Getter Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones are attempting to sell their 2 holiday homes. Bear a teaspoonful of sympathy for Michael Douglas and Zeta-Jones. Catherine, who despite their stellar status are having the devil's own job of selling 2 of their holiday homes. They secluded estate in Mallorca, which has a scarecrow in the form of Donald Trump in its vineyard, has been on the market for 4 years, with the price slashed from 50 million to 36 million euros. The couple are having no more luck with their Georgian mansion in Bermuda, which has languished on the market at $10 million, despite including that celebrity must have a commercial-size laundry room. Never mind, the gilded pair still have a house in Westchester, just outside New York, a ski chalet in Quebec, and a home in Mumbles, which Michael, 73, had built for 48-year-old Catherine so she could keep a connection with Wales, where as a teenager she made her acting debut in Annie at Swansea's Grand Theatre. The clifftop house is looked after by Catherine's father Di, a retired sweet factory owner, and her mother Pat, who keep the cushions permanently plumped for a visit by their famous daughter, although she hasn't been for a couple of years. Endearingly, Michael once said of finding contentment, "You've got to believe in heaven, but right now I will take warm seas, the freshest seafood." Giggles from my kids and a Welsh chuckle. Getter comedian Griff Rhys-Jones is still making bookings for his one-man show. Is Griff Rhys-Jones trying to avoid home? The comedian started touring with his one-man show at the beginning of the year and had expected it to have run its course by now. But he's still making new bookings and will be on the road for most of the summer. I talked to Lee Mack and others and they're not so sure they want to tour because they have small families, he muses, but I'm at the age where my family quite likes to see me go. One of the less obvious attractions of his tour is the number of premiere ins he gets to sample. I sort of decided, not under the influence of anything, that premiere ins are very straightforward. They're identical but with minor variations. The way the shower curtain works, the place where they fit the light switch, makes his show sound riveting. Australia will soon have the pleasure of a visit from Nigel Farage, who is to tour the country urging its people to challenge the political elite and take back their nation. Ring a bell. A poll showed that 2/3 of Australians believe that their way of life is under threat. He thunders, if the average man or woman is prepared to push back against the political elite, they can take back their democracy. At a time when Australia's anti-immigration leader Pauline Hanson is experiencing a resurgence in popularity, the former UKIP leader is expecting to easily fill venues, which means more loot for him. A VIP ticket including an after-show champagne party with Farage will cost his disciples £278. This is going to shock Aidan Turner's admirers. He takes drugs every night. Before the actor's lawyers start salivating. This is not some tabloid exposé, but a reference to how the heartthrob prepares himself for the West End production of The Lieutenant of Inishmore, in which he stars as a cat-loving IRA terrorist. The problem is that Aidan has to share the stage with Imogi. Cats make my allergies flare up, he sniffs, so I have to take a load of antihistamine every night, blank, _ given that his actress wife Jill Gascoigne has Alzheimer's. Alfred Molina was understandably concerned when he found himself forgetting little things, such as what on earth he had just popped upstairs for. So the actor, 65, decided to seek advice from a neurologist. He said to me, "Relax. Not remembering where you left your car keys is one thing, but finding them and not knowing what they are for is a whole other thing." Getty. Joanna Lumley said she avoids alcohol and crisps if she needs to look glamorous for an occasion. Want to look as good as Joanna Lumley at 72? Well, put away that bottle of gin, for a start, and chuck those crisps. If I need to look especially glamorous for something, then I try not to drink for a week beforehand because that way your bones look better, she says. I don't eat 4 packets of crisps before dinner with a GT, which, believe me, I could easily do. Given the chance, I could live off gin and crisps. The actress is, of course, blessed with a sunny disposition, and believes in always trying to turn a negative into a positive. If you say, "How lovely this is," you will make it lovely. If the bus is late, say, "How marvelous, it gives me time to listen to the birds singing." Sir Ray Davies, who has announced that he is reuniting the Kinks after a 22-year break, has been thinking about the knighthood he accepted last year. "I was offered one before," he discloses. "But this time I thought about my parents' generation, people born on the cusp of the First World War who lived through the Second World War, struggled all their lives, and unleashed brats like us in the 1960s who wanted to undo all the things they'd tried so hard to put together. Ray, who came from working class roots, says his title would have been a shock to the few public school boys he knew, such as the traitor Kim Philby's son John, whom he met while both were at Hornsey Art College. One summer break, John said, "I'm going to see my father in Moscow." When he came back after the holidays, he was followed around by MI5 for days. They tailed us to the pub. It was the height of the Cold War then. I miss the Cold War. You knew where you stood back then. Blank _ any singleton searching for love should get a canine companion first, advises Ben Fogel, who believes dog walking is the way to find romance. Getty. Ben Fogel and his wife Marina Fogel. Walking with my Labrador Storm is one of my favorite pastimes, enthuses the TV adventurer, and it's how I met my wife Marina, walking our dogs in Hyde Park. Interestingly, it's how my parents fell in love too, adds Ben. I've been working on an initiative called Walkies on the Wild Side to encourage pet owners to try to diversify their walks and help them bond with their dogs. Blank _ he's such a thoughtful chap, that Paul McCartney. In between chasing girls when he was allowed in Liverpool, he volunteered to do the shopping for one of the old ladies who lived near his home. Then we would spend a bit of time talking about her life, he recalls. Paul McCartney volunteered to help an elderly lady with her shopping back in Liverpool. It was fascinating to speak to someone from a completely different generation. Instead of thinking, it's just an old person, you realize they were young once and they had experiences I can relate to. That led directly to Eleanor Rigby, which was a song about lonely people. Blank _ after a mishap at Amsterdam Airport, Bill Bailey is all in favor of the new biometric security being introduced at passport control desks. Having taken off his jacket for a security check, the comedian managed to drop his travel documents down the metal grills of a radiator. He says, "It took a while to convince anyone that my passport was inside the radiator. But eventually my frazzled state swayed them to think, yes, that is something HES capable of." The handyman was called, and the plane's takeoff was delayed while he dismantled the radiator and retrieved my passport.